Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers, and welcome to This Week in North America. We have a heck of a lot to talk about tonight, folks, and I want to thank you so much for joining us each and every week. Many have asked me, why do we have a 3-minute or so delay before we go on live? Well, we're on 8 social media platforms, and because of the time zones that people are tuning in on, we've noticed that there was a tremendous delay, maybe sometimes up to 6 or 7 minutes. But we certainly weren't going to let you wait that long. So as we move on, you're going to see numbers that are going to be low or numbers that are going to be higher. But we have accurate numbers here of the number of people that are watching and where they are watching from. And as I said all along, because of you sharing these videos around the world, we've gotten a tremendous response from people who are looking to find ways to fight for freedom and liberty in a peaceful way. And we've advocated that for quite some time. Now, for the American audience, I've got to tell you that we're closely watching the new Democrat candidate, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Rather fascinating. He is apparently drawing a lot of attention from not only Democrats, but independents and Republicans. And we are learning that a lot of young people across the country are flocking to him. Now, I remember John F. Kennedy when he was president. I remember Robert Kennedy when he ran for president. And here we are now in the 21st century with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So I can tell you, as a Republican, I am concerned because I've said all along, if the Democrats got a charismatic, articulate individual running for president, we in the Republican Party are going to have a very difficult time if we don't get our act together. And we'll be talking about that at another time on another broadcast. Now, with regard to Project Maple Leaf, we have the second report completed. It is going to go to the House Foreign Affairs Committee like our first report did. And this report deals with information we found with regard to the possibility, and I want to underscore the word possibility, that the U.S. assets, I'm talking about U.S. Surveillance assets, may have been used by the Canadian government to surveil on Canadian citizens and possibly U.S. citizens during the Freedom Convoy. If that is the case, somebody in this country may have a lot to answer to. Now, the fact of the matter is, to give you a little idea, if the FBI or a civilian law enforcement agency did this, well, maybe they were within the confines of the law. But if the United States military or possibly the CIA was involved in any type of surveillance of American citizens, for whatever reason, they crossed a very serious line. And so this is going to go to the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I told you we'd stay on top of it. Why? Because we have determined, when I say we, a group of us here in the United States, and some of our political leaders, by the way, have determined that the Chinese Communist Party has had such a tremendous influence on Justin Trudeau and the Canadian Parliament that it is pretty much close to becoming a national security issue for the United States of America. So we're going to be staying on top of that. And I've got to tell you, folks, what we're finding is very troubling, very troubling. All right, so tonight I have 2 special guests. One, Denise Nolan. Now, I know Denise Nolan. She's a terrific individual who's committed her life to helping many people, but especially women who will be meeting many challenges, not only today, but many challenges in the future. And then after I speak with Denise, we've got Pierre Atala. Now, Pierre, I did interview earlier, and we're going to roll the tape at the end of my interview with Denise. Now, Pierre, many of you know, I've got to tell you a very tragic story with regard to what the government did to him in relation to his children who were at a public school, all over what? All over mandates that, at least in our view, were illegal. So we'll be talking about him talking with him at the second half of our broadcast. But let me bring Denise Nolan on. Denise, thanks so much for taking the time and joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, I noticed something in your email, ladiesturn.com. That's interesting. And it seems to go in sync with what you're doing. So could you share with our audience actually who you are, what you're doing, and all the great things you're doing to help at least women meet the challenges of today?
I was born and raised in Ireland, and I moved to the United States when I was 18, so a couple of decades ago. I've always had to make a difference in other people's lives. And then I, woman, about a year and a half, is a huge philanthropist making a difference in the world. Started talking, and we see huge need for
Denise,
women.
if I could interrupt you, for some reason you're cutting out. We've had some problems with that, so here's what we'll do. Okay, maybe if you kind of back up a little, and if that continues, I'm going to call you on the phone, and I'll tell you how we can do this. Go ahead.
We connected and platform to help. And
okay, Denise, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do something. All right. What I'm going to do, Denise, is I'm going to call you on the phone. I had to do this with a guest last week, so this will work out funny. Mute your computer and mute your microphone, and stay right on camera, okay? And then we'll try to work this out. Folks, we have a outdated software, and we're trying to do what we must to solve some of these problems. So let's get to Denise right here. See, there's always a way, right, folks? Always a way. Okay, let's see. Denise here, Denise here. Okay, Denise, your phone will be ringing in a minute. Okay, Denise, now if you could shut your, there you go. Could you talk right into your phone? Okay, I can't hear you on the phone. Yeah. Could you talk to me on the phone? Can't hear you. Nope, can't hear on the phone, folks. So, all right, I think you're there. Denise?
There's an echo in the background.
Yeah, it may have something to do with your, maybe, hold on a minute. Maybe it had something to do with us here. Okay, do you hear me on the phone? I think if the feedback is from your computer. Okay, folks, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put Pierre on. We're going to go with him first, and then I'll see if I can work this out with Denise, okay? So, Denise, shut it right down, and I'm going to put Pierre on. Thank you. I'll be right back with you. Okay. Folks, my apologies. These things have happened because our software is getting really old, and we're trying to get the funding to get this new software in. So, all right. So I told you about Pierre. We're going to put him on right now, and I'm going to try to work this out with Denise. Here we go, folks. From Canada, a father, a young man who has continuously fought for the rights and freedoms that he so deserves. He's had some difficulties with a school district regarding his children, all over this issue of freedom and liberty. So I'm going to introduce to our audience right now, and that's Pierre Nicola Atala. Thank you so much, Pierre, for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I enjoy your show.
Well, we certainly are honorable to have you here. Now, would you, for the sake of the people here in America and many of your countrymen and women who I know already know you, would you just share with us your background, who you are, where you're from, and how on earth did you get in this intense fight for freedom and liberty in your country?
Well, I'm a Canadian citizen. I was born overseas in England because my dad was doing cancer research there at the time. But I lived most of my life here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and I attended schools in this province growing up, and went to post-secondary school at the University of Manitoba and achieved a Bachelor of Science. And I work currently in my field for the last 25 years or so, and I have two kids in the school system, which is where my story sort of stems from. At the time of pre-pandemic, I was working at the school. I was actively involved with my children's school lives. Sometimes I was there every day of the week, working as lunch supervisor, volunteering for various field trips, special lunches, things like that, helping out with the school. I had a great relationship with the staff, the students, and even the parents, because it was at lunchtime. There were parents in the area coming in and out as well. So I had a good relationship with everybody. However, when pandemic started, the first thing that happened was the principal called me and asked me for my vaccination status. At which point I was curious as to why she needed it, because I know she's not a medical professional, and it didn't make sense to me that she was even asking me. So I told her that my vaccination status was protected, private, and confidential. At which point I was basically removed from my job. It didn't stop there. Further into the pandemic, they brought in the mask mandates in the school. The school did that, requiring that they gave the children masks and required them to put them on all day. And they said it was because of public health orders by the public health minister of Manitoba. However, I was curious, and I did some digging into the legislation, and I found out that public schools all over Manitoba were excluded from this public health order. So it wasn't a public health order that required the students to wear masks at school. The schools were doing this on their own. And when I pointed that out to the staff, they didn't like it. They didn't want to talk about that. So after that went on for a little bit, I decided to give them a notice of liability and some paperwork, which we told them to stop doing it because they didn't have the right to do it. And also I was telling other parents as well. I was talking to parents in the schoolyard, expressing my beliefs about not just my beliefs, but the actual fact of law that these kids are being forced to wear masks. Meanwhile, it's not even the law. So there was a bit of different views when it came to masks. My children started to develop harms from the mask. I noticed that my younger son started to not be able to speak properly. He was losing his voice, and he was seeing the school division speech pathologist at the time. And I had read an article that the chemicals in the masks could potentially do harm to the children. So I asked the speech pathologist if that was the case in my son's case, and she corrected me. She said, no, it's actually the fact that he's wearing the mask is causing him to talk louder, and he's wearing it all day. It's putting strain on his voice and stressing his vocal cords. She recommended that he speak to an ear, nose, and throat specialist at the hospital. So we took her advice, and we went to the hospital, and the doctor was able to confirm that he did have scarring of his vocal cords, and that was causing his voice to go raspy and hoarse and to lose his voice altogether at times. So I asked the doctor, does it not make sense to give him a mask exemption, a medical mask exemption, a letter from you that I could show the school so that they would cooperate in removing the mask so that his voice can go back to normal? And he refused. I asked his pediatrician. His pediatrician told me that he would lose his job if he wrote that exemption, even though he knew it was the best thing for the child.
Boy.
The doctor wasn't able to do his oath. His Hippocratic oath of protecting the child. He wasn't able to do it because he was fearful for his job.
You know, Pierre, when I hear these stories, now you're a parent, a father, you should have the rights to determine the health issues regarding your children. A couple of questions I have for you. Number one, was there any due process before you were terminated from your job? I mean, do you have any chance to go before a board or get an attorney and to challenge this termination?
Well, there's the school board where one could make a delegation and then appear before them to request anything like that. However, I took it above the principal. I went to the superintendent. He did the same. He reiterated the same statements, and it went to his head of human resources, who also issued a letter saying that unless I was to, get vaccinated, then I couldn't come back to my job. So I could have taken it a higher level. I did go to the school board level for what occurred after, which was the no trespass order that they issued against me for trying to communicate these things with the school, which I will say that I'm protected against by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada, the Bill of Rights in Canada, the Human Rights Code in Manitoba, the Public Schools Act. Even all these laws protect me from that type of reprisal, if you will. However, I don't believe that the school board is following those laws. And why is that? Well, after doing more research on the superintendent, I found out that they are a member of an association known as NAS.NB.ca, which stands for Manitoba Association of School Superintendents. That association pledges allegiance to global corporations. And they talk about educating global citizens, not Canadian citizens. Now, mind you, Canadian citizens are protected by Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Human Rights Code, all of Canada.
Pierre,
but a global citizen.
Are your school boards elected or appointed?
Elected.
All right. And I ask you that quick because they're elected here in the States. Now, until recently, I could tell you most school boards, and now it appears that way in Canada, are comprised of political puppets, puppets that have strings connected to them, to political parties and politicians. And most people who are on school boards, they're very, very frightened, weak people. So I could understand why you didn't get too far with them. Here in the States, finally, after a lot of people went through what you're going through, people by the hundreds were going to school board meetings and just tossing them out the next election, getting rid of them. I bring that out because do you have that option? Have there been parents that have been at least coming with you at school board meetings, supporting you, or you haven't gotten to that point yet?
Well, here's the thing. When I did go to the school board to talk about this, they violated their own policies again. Now, one of the things that they did unilaterally, not a decision of the board, but the chair of the board by herself took it upon herself to take my delegation off the public record and move it into an in-camera private meeting. Now, their own policy says that has to be a decision of the board. That means it should be voted on and discussed amongst all the school trustees. But I know that never happened because some of the trustees had no idea, what was going on, even after I got that letter moving it in private. So I know that the chair had acted on her own because of that.
I got to tell you, as I'm hearing your story, I'm beginning to realize that when we speak of things global, there are global cowards. I mean, this is the act of a coward, for goodness sakes. I mean, what's wrong with having a public, transparent discussion with you so other parents could see it? Everything, what I find is that these politicians, I have to really contain myself because I could understand, I'm a parent myself, and I give you credit. I would have probably taken things in a different way. But my point is, and I'm not recommending you do that. You obey the laws of your country, all right? You do everything you could within the framework of your law. Our laws are different, and there are things we can do that you can't do there, primarily because you're facing the influence of a communist regime up there, at least in my view. But now, all right. So, and I'm asking you these questions to get a lot of the Americans to understand, because I'm sure their blood is boiling right now, and if they could, they would come to Canada to help you. So what I'm being asked by some of the feeds here is, do you have a way to get to sue them, to bring charges against them, to get into a courtroom for a judge and maybe a jury to decide, whether your rights are violated or not, and if in fact they are liable?
That's a great question. The legal system in Manitoba is different from the States. There are some mechanisms in place that would help. One of them is the Public Schools Act, which is legislation that governs the school board. And it states in there that the Minister of Education can do an inquiry into their actions. Now, I wrote the Minister of Education, and I did not get a response from the minister himself. When I phoned the minister's office to follow up with the letter that I wrote him to get his attention, the receptionist on the phone told me that my letter was rooted out. And I never got a response from him. I did get a response from a man from a totally different department who had no jurisdiction, but but it was nothing. Like it was nothing.
Typical politicians, they can't take responsibility when they're stuck, and primarily they're motivated by fear. They're probably, when they got your letter, their knees were knocking in fear, because I said all along, when people like you speak up and you sound like you're a good character, you're articulate, you know what you're talking about, they fear you. So the best way to deal with you is to just ignore you. You see, and they've tried that here, but it hasn't worked very well. So you took all those measures, but continue with the story, because I have been told, and please confirm this or not, they went so far as to prohibiting you from seeing your children at times. Is that true?
Yes. The no trespass order prevented me from going to the school anywhere, from the sidewalk beyond. It
Wow.
made it difficult with me and my kids, for sure. But even picking them up, I learned from a FIPA request, a Freedom of Information request, that someone at the school tried to call the police on me for stepping onto the school ground to pick up my son. I wasn't even talking to anybody. I was just stepping on the ground to pick up my son. And I learned later that they had tried to have me arrested for that. And I learned that later that the police denied that request.
Good.
Of the school.
Because if you were to tell me different, boy, I'll tell you, there would have been blood vessels coming out of my head. Because I'll tell you, I was hoping that your answer would be exactly what you said, that the cops used their heads this time, realizing you weren't charged with anything, that you didn't commit a crime, for goodness sakes. You're picking up your child. So, all right, let my temperature go down a little. Please proceed.
Okay, so let me just get back to it.
Sure.
The Manitoba Public Schools Act does give the school the authority to have control over the police. So when they do want to deal with a individual on the school property or not, the police don't really question a lot of it, and they will do. And the Public Schools Act gives them that authority over the police, which is a bit crazy, because if they're not acting in good faith, then potentially you have the opportunity for the police to be doing something that is just flat out wrong. And so my older son also experienced discrimination, and he had his rights violated. I believe he had his rights violated when it comes to the mask at lunchtime. He told me that when he was eating, they were targeting him. Because of my efforts to remove the mask, it seemed as though he was more strictly watched by the staff when he was eating, even asked to put his mask on while he was eating, which that led to changes in his behavior. He told me he no longer was eating because he was hungry. He was eating for other reasons, and the staff would stand over him. He told me that they would tap their foot, cross their arms, stare at him, make him very uncomfortable. And when it was all said and done, they would force him to say thank you.
That sounds like child abuse, for goodness sakes. I tell you, that wouldn't happen. I mean, if it ever happened here, and some of those things you're describing have happened here, those educators have been fired and sued and taken to task, and of course have upheld the parents' rights. Now, you knowing all that, and I've got to tell you, again, I got another feed here, and people are actually infuriated over what they're hearing here. And I'm getting questions. Well, what about now? I mean, all this has gone on. What's your stat? You can't see your kids on school property. Your kids apparently, again, in my view, I would say in my view for the fact checkers, they get upset if I call it as fact. In my view, your children were subjected to abuse. I mean, absolute abuse from these adults, the way you described it. So what recourse do you have now, number one? And number two, where are your children now being educated?
Okay, so with what you mentioned about child abuse, I brought everything to the attention of the superintendent, and he told me that he was launching an external child abuse investigation. That was a long time ago, and I've been requesting access to information about that child abuse investigation. The school has denied, the school division, and the school board has denied access to that information of the investigation. So we have, in here, our government, we have someone called the Ombudsman who oversees these things. But the Ombudsman also is taking a long time to do their investigation. It's been a year. It'll be a year probably before I get a report from the Ombudsman. And they may deny access to the information about the child abuse investigation, at which point you can start going to judges after that, but you can't even go to the judges. That's how our system is here. It's very slow, and they're not putting a big priority on it, so it's taking a long time. And as far as where my kids are at today, I still can't go to the school to see them. I'm still banned from the property. There are a few events that they're permitting me to attend, but it's still very difficult to contact the staff. If I want to speak to teachers, they force me to go to the principal. They escalated their efforts in cutting me off. In the beginning, they were escalating it where it went to not being allowed on the property, to not being allowed to speak to school staff, to not be allowed to email them. I found out from another Freedom of Information request that one of the staff members told the staff not to communicate with these. And from my end, what I experienced was when I went to pick up my son from the sidewalk, if I said hi to a staff member on the other side of the fence, they would turn their back to me and walk away. So it was quite inhumane treatment all around, I'd say. And it's still going on today. They still don't want me on the property. They're talking about lifting, maybe they say, we'll lift it next year. That's what they're talking about.
Well, I got
Even then, they're not saying, sure.
This is really disturbing to hear. Now, I understand in your country, there is a National Inquiry Commission. I think it's made up of citizens. Are you aware of that? I think it's a real good process, and I'm going to look into it to see what it's all about. But apparently, they're having citizens like yourself give testimony publicly, and they're going to gather all this information, and I suppose take some sort of action. There's another inquiry going on, the Hague Inquiry. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I'm going to speak to an individual about that to see if they could get your testimony. There's actually the Hague has actually agreed to look at the charges brought against your government leaders. And there's 6,000 pages of evidence. It's something that you might want to look into too, as far as, another avenue you could take. My point is, Pierre, is that all this pressure coming down on these political weaklings, and I've seen it happen over and over again. The people at the top, probably beginning with your prime minister, as is with our president, they edict all these laws. It goes down to ministers or Congress, goes down to principals, superintendents. And you know who gets left holding the bag? The person at the bottom. That means your superintendents, your school boards. They're the ones that are going to be held very, very accountable for violations of your rights. So, and I bring the inquiry up. Do you know about the inquiry, the National Inquiry Commission?
I'm familiar with the citizens-led national inquiry.
Okay.
I participated in it, and I spoke there, and it was a great opportunity to speak. And there was a commission that I spoke in front of. I was questioned on it. It was a great opportunity, and I hope to see that evidence be submitted to Hague. That would be great.
Well, I'm gonna speak to a very fine gentleman who's been working on that. We're running out of a little time. We still have a little more time. What's going through my mind and to my American countrymen and women here, I've said all along that we have focused our attention, we here in America, on the southern border. But look at what's going on at our northern border. I've said this, Pierre's not saying it, I'm saying it. What he described, at least to me, and I'll emphasize I'm saying this, are individuals who have been influenced by the Chinese Communist Party, no question about it. And if the Soviet Union was still around, I'd say the Soviet Communist Party. Just like meaning the Communist Party influences in America have infiltrated our school systems from elementary schools to universities, and now, thank God, they're being arrested and they're being thrown out of the country. But we need to help the Canadian people by getting this information out. You need to share this with your neighbors and your friends. And Pierre, one thing that we've tried to, with regard to helping people in Canada, we tried to let them know our methods of operation, what we've done. And what we've done is we've gotten parents to organize 12, 15, 20, and go en masse to these school board meetings, very respectful, very quiet, non-threatening, and just get up there and lay it out to these people. If they're elected officials, believe me, I was on a school board. I was elected to a school board, elected to a city council, ran for governor here in New Jersey. I know politics inside out. And I've noticed a common thread with all of these politicians. They're fearful of people like you. They're scared to death of you. They're scared to death of mom, dad, aunt, uncle. So anybody going to those school board meetings who are ready to go up to that mic and with respect and dignified, share with them what's going on and why they need to be challenged. Well, that's something I hope people in your country will think about doing.
That kind of support would be much appreciated. I think you're right. Having members like that at school board meetings would be very effective.
Well, all right. Well, that's the suggestion. It's out there. We can't get involved in helping organize things like that in your country because then we're trying to change from here legislation and actions with regard to your country. So we're not allowed to do that, and we're not going to even.
I'll do that.
Yeah. I can just give suggestions, but not only you. I would suppose after this broadcast, you're going to get a lot of people. I mean, a lot. So Pierre, here's what I like to do as we wrap things up. How you doing now? How's the family doing? How the children doing? And where do you go from here?
Well, we keep fighting. We keep speaking out. We keep shedding light and truth on what's going on. We keep talking to more people, and we gather more support, and like you say, we take that support to the board office where it's needed, and we pray for change.
Well, you say the word prayer, and I'm glad you said that, because one thing about Campaign for America, we're one of the few, if the only one, broadcast on secular networks who are not ashamed of bringing God up, of bringing Christ up, bringing the Holy Spirit up, and bringing the power of prayer up. We've seen very, very dramatic turning of events when we address them politically and otherwise, but mostly when we address them spiritually. We believe there's a great spiritual war going on in our time. You're part of that war. You're on the front lines. We are. And I always try to share with people when they ask why. Well, maybe as we read in Ruth with Mordecai, maybe it was for such a time as this that we were born and created. So what you're doing, and you're not going to be alone, and you're not alone, because after tonight's broadcast, I'm sure you'll hear from a lot of people, but I'm sure you're going to hear from heaven. And I mean the Holy Spirit. Going to give you the strength you need, the willpower you need, and all the tools you need, physically and politically, and especially spiritually. And I'm glad you brought that out. So prayer is important, correct?
I agree. I mean, at the end of this, it's all going to bring glory to Jesus and the Holy Spirit and God for sure. I'm confident in that.
Yeah.
I can read you a little bit of if I could refer you. I don't have it in front of me, but Daniel, the end of chapters of Daniel talk about wise leaders who stand up and speak truth and try and spread it to many people. It talks about their persecution, like what I've experienced, that I believe is persecution, and it talks about the persecution and the thief. Some people will go to jail even, but in God's eyes, these people in the end will shine like stars, he says.
No doubt about it. God never lets us down. Never, ever lets us down. Well, Pierre, thanks so much. I will be in touch tomorrow with the mover and shaker of the Hague inquiry. You've already been on your national inquiry. And then there are things we can do within the framework of our laws for you, and we intend to do that. But I think the most important thing we can do now is through our news media outlets is get the word out, let people know that here is another nail in the coffin of freedom and liberty in Canada. And we got to start removing those nails. And we do that by giving people enough knowledge and information as to what's going on in their country. And hopefully they'll wake up, because Pierre, look, the fact of the matter is this, and I've said this to American liberals and Democrats, all that's happening to conservatives and supporters of freedom and liberty, all this that's happening to them is going to happen to those who are fighting us, because communists only want red-blooded communists part of their party. They don't want Americans. They don't want Canadians. They'll use liberals. They'll use Democrats here. They'll use these people. But at the end of the day, they're communist, and they're just not going to allow anybody outside Beijing, if you will, in this case, get involved with them. So they'll be enslaved because of their empowerment of the slaveholders. Know what I mean? That's what's going to happen. They need to join our side. That's what I'm saying.
For sure, I agree. Yeah, well, I'm glad that you're here helping spread the light and the truth.
We're going to do it, my friend. You did well. You're going to be in our prayers. And can we have you on again? Would you like to come on sometime?
Sure, I'll give you an update as things move along. I can give you an update as to my situation for sure. I'd be happy to.
That'd be great. I have your phone number. I have your email. I'll pass it on to some of our friends who will be able to maybe bring you some support or help get things organized there. Okay, we can't directly, but some of your countrymen could.
Sounds good. Well, it was great talking to you today.
Pierre, thank you. You're a hero. Don't underestimate what you're doing, because after people see this broadcast, not only in Canada, but in America, they're going to say, if this guy is going to stand up with the courage he has, well, maybe I should too. And that's a good thing. As you say, to God be the glory.
Yes, God be the glory.
Thank you. Take care. Take care, Pierre. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, folks, there you have it. I just, what more words can I add? A father loves his children. And to our Americans, we've said all along, this is why the Trudeau government is becoming a very clear and present danger to our national security. I'm going to get Denise on again now. Now, folks, please bear with me, because we're going to find a way to make this work, okay? So, Denise, let's get you back on. Now, the video is great, Denise. Do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, this is great. Now I'm getting.
You are?
I'm getting. All right, now. Yeah, I'm getting.
I don't know why that's happening. I was on Zooms today, so I don't know.
Well, we're going to see. We're going to see something. Maybe. And if it is.
Is that better?
Now, it's usually when I'm speaking. Yeah, we're good.
All right, let's rock and roll.
Oh, you found the solution. Now, Denise, before we get on to what you and I are going to talk about, and if you want to talk about this a little, I was watching your reactions when you heard Pierre. And a lot of Canadians are watching right now. And you're an American that heard what you heard. So if you wish, all right, I know we hadn't planned to talk about it. Could you tell us how you feel about this?
Oh my God, my heart goes out to him. I'm in Texas. We wouldn't put up with that. It just wouldn't fly. You have your right as a citizen. And, if I was in that situation, I would probably have pulled my kid out of school and homeschooled him. That's just, you've got, the kids are already traumatized enough with everything with COVID, and to be bullied in school by your teachers and your, people around you, that's horrible.
Yeah. Just, but it's not just going on with him, Denise. Unfortunately, the situation up there is really bad. And hey, for all we know, your organization may expand up there to help meet women and maybe parents meet a lot of the challenges that they're facing. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you've been doing here in the States, and I understand it's been a lot of great work. So if you could again, my apologies to you and our audience, folks. It's that's the way it is, I guess, right now. But Denise, what's going on with you, where you're headed, your organization, and what you're doing to actually improve the lives of many people?
Yeah, we're literally a group of women that came together that are business women that have serving hearts that want to make a difference. We want to give back, and we find that women are not supported enough, especially in business. They go through life crises. They don't know how, or they just kind of go numb. And so we're in a platform that is data driven, that we are connecting with women globally, organically, and giving them the resources to help them wherever they are in their lives. So you lose a sibling, you lose a child, you lose a spouse. What do you do now? I want to start a business. How do you put a resume together? And then having the resources of these women in the platform that you can leverage so that we help you grow and support you. And it's a lot of fun. I meet women of all walks of life. We have a 501(c) nonprofit, and part of it is we do events every month across the United States right now, but we plan to take it globally. And we're helping eradicate human trafficking and youth development, as well as mental wellness.
Denise, you're going to go globally, which is good, and maybe we could help give you a start because, again, our Canadian audience is rather large. So if there's anyone from Canada watching, feel free to either email us or we'll ask Denise to give you her email towards the end of our interview and get in touch with her. Now, Denise, one thing I noticed with regard to the plight, if you will, of a lot of women. There is a big problem here, we know in America, no doubt around the world with the economy. A lot of these men and women, both of them have to go out to work. They have to go get a job just to survive. Who's watching the children? You see, what are they going to do? Who's going to drop the kids off at school? Especially in the case of women who have never worked and chose to work at home, which is very important, raising their children. The spouse either dies or the husband ends up divorcing them. They're left out in a wilderness, almost dragged into poverty. How do you help them with that?
One foot in front of the other. We try to help as many people as we can, but through our fundraising and through the different associations that we're involved with, we hear of these stories. We hear of that woman. We hear of somebody that needs help or got rescued or lost a child or a spouse, is trying to start over, got a divorce. So they come to us, and we do fundraising events to help them with their rent or buy a vehicle or whatever it is, where these are real people. These are human beings. We're all, God's children. So just reach out to us. I mean, just connect with us on Ladies Turn app. It's there. It's on Android and ISIS. Not ISIS, yes, iOS. If we can help you, we will. We want to connect with women in Canada, of course, and if we can be a resource, which will also help us grow and make a difference in other people's lives, we want to do that.
Denise, I saw a very troubling commercial today. Not a commercial, actually a news story. Of course, you're never aware of things that are going on totally unless you see some of these things on the news. And here was the story. It was about two women. One of the women, alone, all right, she was in her 40s, went through a divorce, went out to work. The other woman was her mother, 90 years old, has dementia. And that woman, 40 years old, had to leave her job and take care of mom there. And there was no help for her. There was no government agency. Medicare only provided 1 day a week for 20 minutes for somebody to come in. And the mother, actually on the air now, actually thought the daughter was her mother. And they were illustrating how difficult this is. So here we have a 40-year-old woman who was working, now has to stay home to take care of mom because there's nobody in, imagine that, nobody in the richest country in the world to help her. And is that something maybe, your organization would be able to at least try to help them through this terrible nightmare, because that's what it is. And in addition to that question, are you able to maybe partner with government agencies or local municipal agency or even private corporations that could help this situation out?
Yeah, we're looking for corporate sponsorship. The more people know about what we're doing, the more people we can help. It's through the organizations that we're connected with that we hear about situations like this woman. I'd love in my heart and soul to be able to help everyone, but we're growing. We also have, actually the founder of the company is a grant writer, and she knows how to write grants around underserved communities, people that are going through, if there's a crisis with children, youth development, again, anything to do with making a difference and helping people. That is her specialty. She knows where to find the grants so that we can help these people and make a difference in their lives.
Look, here's what I'm going to do. All right. I love doing stuff like what I'm about to share with you. I was the Commissioner of Public Affairs and the Department of Health here in Nutley, New Jersey. Made a lot of contacts. Was able to understand that there was a lot that government can't do, but will do if they're able to partner with organizations like yourself. So during the week, in fact, after tonight's broadcast, I'll give you a call and I'll try to get some more information from you, and I'll do the best I could to, at the very least, set up some sort of a meeting, whether it be on Zoom or with you personally, with some of the people I know that could at least become familiarized with what you're doing. Because the way I look at it is this: these municipal governments, and you know politics. You've been around as much as I have politicians, right? We've seen them come and go, but politicians, they love to do things like this, mainly for their own political reasons, but that's okay, right? As long as they get the job done that we want done. So I'll speak to a few people, and then off camera, I'll speak to you about moving forward with that. In the meantime, again, with Canada, this would be a great resource for a lot of the families up there, I believe, that no doubt are going through similar problems here, probably even worse problems because of the conditions that the government's laying on them. But there are things we can do and will continue to do to help our own people here in America and the Canadian people. Because what you're doing is absolutely, it's fascinating. I have not heard this being done anywhere. I know you a long time because I haven't seen you in a few years. It was in where were we? In St. Louis?
St. Louis, yeah. I met you.
Yeah.
Sophia, so absolutely. But yeah, I mean, we've got to help people. We've got to, we're supposed to. That's just what we are supposed to do, is make a difference in other people's lives. It's so gratifying just to know that you are helping someone. And when we get together in a room, all the women, we are all alpha women. We all are strong in our own space, but we cry, we laugh, we support, we advocate for each other. And I know we have already made a difference in other people's lives. And it's very rewarding.
Well, look, Denise, I believe women should be in more leadership roles in government, corporations, et cetera. I really mean that because look, at the fact of the matter is men have dominated business, industry, and government for a long time. And you know what? Things are pretty screwed up. I mean, they really are. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, I look at women around the world who have been in political offices, and not that they're perfect, but they've done a darn good job. We have governors here in America. Margaret Thatcher, I thought, was, despite politics, I mean, she was the Iron Lady. Remember? I mean, she was tough. We had Jean Kirkpatrick here, ambassador to the United Nations. We had, under the Bush administration, Condoleezza Rice. I mean, Reagan had a lot of good women in office. So I think what we have to do is, recognize the contributions of everybody, but especially women over the years. I'm going to share something with you that I discovered, and I'd like the audience to please listen to this because it goes to Denise's point. My mother's 98 years old, and we're going through all kinds of papers and all kinds of things, and I go through this file, Denise, and I see this certificate that says awarded to Ann Rogers, that's her name, for her contribution to the defense of the United States of America, Brooklyn Navy Yard, 1945.
Wow.
And I said, Mom, what's this? She says, you know, your father was in the Navy fighting in World War II, fighting the enemies. The women of this country were going to factories 12, 15 hours a day, welding walkie-talkies, assembling weapons. They were on an assembly line, Denise, 15 hours a day, making sure that the troops overseas would get the supplies they need. I never learned about that in elementary school. I never learned about that in high school. I didn't know about it until now. You see, and that's my point. We need to teach our children our total culture, the total contribution from people. Is that something you foresee, or maybe you'll want to go down that road to get some curriculum involved in our schools in Canada, the United States, wherever, about the contributions of grandma and mom? How about that?
So we're a platform, consider it more like a LinkedIn, where we have resources for women to help them And we also want to make it very educational. So if somebody wants to come on and talk about, we do a podcast to talk about, their experience, something that like you shared with your mom, like we can put that into an infrastructure of knowledge, maybe under educational history. We'll have classes to, how do you launch a product in the market? How do you start from scratch? So it's more educational and a resource to be able to help women get the knowledge and get the resources to help them to grow, because we all want to do something with our lives. Half of us don't know how to. I know for me personally, I've gone through very bad times in my life. I've had two young children that I'd had to raise, and I had no resources. I couldn't reach out to my parents. They wouldn't understand what I mean, plus I wasn't even from the United States. So I had to figure it out for myself. And was it a struggle? Absolutely. I want to be that person to help another woman.
What about young girls in high school and elementary school? They don't hear about. Again, we're talking about the contributions of their gender, if you will, of the good things that they have done. I mean, we hear sports. You hear great tennis players and this player and that player. But I'm talking about, they need to hear about the corporate leaders who are women in America. They need to hear about the women in the military and in law enforcement, and firefighters, etc. What about them? It seems like they've all fell through the cracks here with regard to education.
Well, there's, when you're talking about that age group of men and women, girls and boys, that's a crisis in itself. They don't know how to talk to each other. They're traumatized because of COVID. They're antisocial, anxiety. A lot of them are on medication. We will have a group for them to connect them through the social media platform to learn from each other, to talk to each other, and hopefully grow together. So everybody thinks they're on their own, right? They're in that space by themselves. It is a global problem. We're doing a huge event with the International Bipolar Foundation out in San Diego, again, a fundraiser to give them some of the financial resources to deal with this crisis of specifically a lot of younger people that are, they're lost.
Yeah, well, maybe what we need to do is lose our governments and let us do the job, right?
Yeah, but we want, so we're trying to build it and put it together, and we're open to, exploring and partnering with different entities, because we're learning too, right? So it's a whole bunch of different women that are coming together. And if we don't have the resources or the educational tool or somebody in the platform that is a woman, we will reach out and, I won't say hire, but we will contract with that gentleman to give us the knowledge that we need so that we can help someone else.
This is great. I mean, this is the spirit of volunteerism, right? The spirit that motivates. I'm gonna ask you before we close out the spiritual aspects of all this. I'm going to ask you a little bit about that. I saw you again when the young man talked about the power of prayer and the things we need to do to recognize there's a God above. If you feel comfortable with it, I don't like to put anybody on the spot. And if you don't, that's fine. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
God first. You got to have faith. We don't know why things happen to us, but He has a purpose for each and every one of us. We're all unique. And we just have to, faith is the unknown, and know that He has a plan for us, and He will get us through the hard times because He will not fail us. So yes, God first, always.
I love it. I love that. God first. Well said. Well, Denise, we're going to have you on again. Again, my apologies for kind of messing up in the beginning, but we got there, didn't we?
Hey, trial and error. That's what life is about, right?
Now, Ladies Turn. I want to put this up here. ladiesturn.com.
ladiesturnglobal.com. Yes.
Let me put this so everybody can see it. Ladies Turn. You can tell I need glasses. Global, GLOBAL. L. Don't you love live broadcast, folks? This doesn't. Okay, so let's go. Ladies Global. There it is, ladiesglobal.com. All right. So what we'll do is we'll also put that out. I'll talk to you after the broadcast. I'll give you a call. I want to try to help you out with a few things. And folks in Canada, United States, or anywhere, just get in touch with Denise through ladiesglobal.com. I mean, you could actually do this anywhere on the planet. I mean, it's good stuff.
That's the whole idea, is like, that's what we do. We have women that reach out to us that have never heard of us, and somebody has told them something, and they're like, I want to be a part of this. I want to be part of something that's bigger than me. And I want to, be with good-hearted, genuine women. And so that's how it's kind of grown.
This is great stuff. Good stuff. Denise, thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh,
Would you come on again sometime?
Oh, if they allow me. No,
We
yeah,
certainly
of course
will.
I
Are you kidding me? I'm sure a lot of women want you to come back on again too. Thanks,
Yeah.
Denise. We'll see you soon. I'll talk to you in a little while.
All right. Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye. What a great guest, right, folks? We have two great guests tonight. And again, sorry for we're having some software problems and we're working on that, but I'm sure we'll be able to get it down pat soon. Now, folks, next week, all right, please listen carefully. We're going to be on the road. We're not going to be on the air. I believe that's the 27th of April. We're going to be on the road. And as we advertise, we're going to be talking about you. We're going to be talking about to some certain organizations here in the United States. We're going to be talking to them about the plight you're having in Canada. I want the American people to know, not only through this broadcast, but by those of us on the road, who's going to bring the plight of the Canadian people right to their doorstep so that they get up front and personal, understand what's going on in your country. And I'm confident, based on what I'm hearing and seeing, that the people in this country are really looking north now and very concerned about what's going on. Now, a special guest from Canada, by the way, on May 4th, because that'll be, I believe May is in just a couple of weeks away. We're going to have a Canadian military hero on the broadcast on May 4th. I've already spoken with him, and I've got to tell you what an incredible, fascinating story. This Canadian hero in the military, who I'm not going to reveal his name now, was instrumental in saving the lives of United States Marines. And I believe that his story needs to be told. And I believe that he certainly should get some sort of recognition for what he did on a very, very difficult day back in the 1980s. So that'll be on May 4th. And then, we'll just move along. We're just moving along, folks. We're doing some great things here because of you. And what do I want from you is your prayers. Just pray that the good Lord provides our needs, that he opens up more doors, and we're going to walk through every single one of them. And Alan Nicholson, we hope to have him on soon to give us an update on the Hague Inquiry and the National Citizens Inquiry and everything else that he's been involved in. Him and his wife, Carol, have been very, very deeply involved in trying to help their country. David Dolan, he's been working with us. He's from Canada. He's been a terrific asset to taking care of his country. And that's what it's all about, right? All right, folks, that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to see you probably between now and May 4th. I'll be on the air during the day or in between sometime to give you updates on specific topics that we need to get to you before May 4th. But please spread the word, May 4th. All right, folks. And before I forget, May 1st. May 1st, folks. May 1st is a National Day of Prayer. And what are we going to do May 1st? We're going to pray for Pastor Arthur, because on May 2nd, I believe he is going to be brought before the court, and there's going to be some sort of procedure or sentencing or whatever. So it's interesting, and we didn't plan it this way, but it just turned out that when we said on May 1st we want to pray for Pastor Arthur and the Canadian citizens, it ended up to be our National Day of Prayer. So we'll not only be praying for America and the rights and freedoms here, but I specifically promised Pastor Arthur that we'll be praying for him on May 1st. And that's a Monday night. So keep that in mind, folks. So thanks so much, folks. God bless you all. Have a great week. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers. And remember, let freedom ring.